All right, welcome back. And today we're going to finally compare Tobacco Oud and Tobacco Oud Intense by Tom Ford. I had a lot of requests from my subscribers and people on Instagram. They wanted to know what's my take on Tobacco Oud and Tobacco Oud Intense and which one I would to go with. And today I just decided to kind of go over both of them and kind of let you guys know what's my take on Tobacco Oud and Tobacco Oud Intense. Now, we're going to start out with Tom Ford Tobacco Oud. Now, I had this fragrance for a long time. I got it when I got Tobacco Vanille, and I ran out of it, and I got it again because it is a very special fragrance. It is a smoldering, bold, and unapologetic. And it was launched in 2013. I had this, I bought it with Tobacco Vanille. It's a very unique fragrance. I got this before it even got famous. A lot of people, like I said, didn't like this fragrance because it was so bold, it was so smoldering, and it was so unapologetic that they just couldn't handle it. It was just very polarizing type of fragrance at a time. So a lot of people went with Tobacco Vanille, but there was something special about it that when it came out, I got with Tobacco Vanille, and I was like, this is just so much better than Tobacco Vanille as far as the tobacco fragrance goes. Now, this one is a woody, spicy type of fragrance. Even though it's tobacco, it's woody, spicy. It falls under the category of woody, spicy type of fragrance. Now, this one, the nose behind this fragrance is Olivier Guillotine. I hope I said that right. And he was the nose behind this fragrance, and Olivier Guillotine got together with another perfumist later on, which I will get to it, and they actually made the Tobacco Oud Intense, which we will get to it later down the video. But let's get back to Tobacco Oud and kind of see what kind of accords we get from this fragrance on the initial spray. Yeah, it's a gorgeous type of fragrance. I get the tobacco right away. It's very strong on tobacco note, very realistic, very bold on tobacco note. It's warm, spicy. It's very dry type of fragrance. And it also has a booziness to it. There's a whiskey type of accord to it that I smell. You get oud in here, and you get a little bit of sweetness in this fragrance. Now the dry down becomes even more sweeter as it dries down, but on opening, because of the oud and because of the tobacco, the sweetness is not that sweet. It's a little bit actually bitter, but then as it dries down, it becomes sweeter, and it's also very balsamic too. I can definitely smell that balsamicness of this fragrance, but it's not as balsamic as Tobacco Oud Intense, which we will get to later on down the video. Now, with that being said, Tobacco Oud has this very intense masculinity about it. It's very self-assured, and it's full of confidence. So if you want to wear this fragrance, you definitely have all this characteristic to be able to wear this fragrance. Otherwise, Tobacco Oud will wear you. Now, let's get to the notes of Tobacco Oud really quick. Top notes, you get whiskey. Middle notes, you get cinnamon, coriander, and spicy notes. And base notes, you get auger wood, which is oud. You get tobacco, sandalwood, patchouli, benzoin, incense, cedar, and vanilla. So as you can see, most of your notes are in your base notes. The only note that stands on your top note is the whiskey note, which is pretty prominent note, and it's very unapologetic, and it hits you right in the face. But you got also the tobacco, which is right in your face, and oud as well. Now the patchouli and the sandalwood, they make the fragrance kind of, they round up the fragrance. They give the fragrance a nice volume and make it kind of earthy. And then the benzoin makes the fragrance with vanilla kind of sweet on the dry down. But on the opening, it's definitely very dry fragrance. As I said, it's very smoldering, very bold, and very unapologetic. So that's as far as the notes of Tobacco Oud goes. Now, I'm not gonna go over the performance or over the longevity. I'm gonna just tell you that it performs really good and it lasts pretty long. I'm not gonna rate them like I usually do. So it's a pretty long lasting fragrance. I would say if we're comparing this to Tobacco Oud Intense, they both last the kind of about the same. I would say Tobacco Oud Intense lasts a little bit longer because it has some animalic notes in there, which the animalic notes make the fragrance last a little bit longer. And they get more longevity out of the fragrance. But that's basically what I get from Tobacco Oud Intense. If you're looking for a fragrance that it's very bold again, dry, sophisticated, it's not as cloying and heady as Tobacco Vanille, and you want it to be dry and it's not too balsamic, I would do Tobacco Oud. Now let's get to Tobacco Oud Intense. Now, Tobacco Oud Intense, on the other hand, it's a very immersive, tantalizing, and heightened type of a fragrance. If you compare this to Tobacco Oud. So it's lifted up, it's made more aggressive, also at the same time, a little bit more sensual and also a little bit more intense as far as the fragrance goes. Now, I personally prefer Tobacco Oud Intense over Tobacco Oud. Again, on the opening, it's very unapologetic, it's very bold, it hits you right in the face, especially this one is even more so. So if you think this one is bold, you gotta try this one. This is just like very strong, way more spicy. It's warm, spicy, and it's also very balsamic on the opening. And you also get a new note in here. You don't get that cognac note, or I'm sorry, that whiskey note that you get in Tobacco Oud. You actually get a nice accord of amber in here. So it's a little bit ambery, which I actually prefer this over the whiskey note. Now, I get the amber note or amber accord in here. It's very woody, and it's also, as I said, warm, spicy. You get big dose of tobacco in here that I can smell it. And also I get a very interesting accord in here, which is raspberry. Right on the opening, yeah, right when you spray it, you get that raspberry note, which is very beautiful, which I totally prefer that over Tobacco Oud. Tobacco Oud, you get that whiskey note, and it's very dry, but this one, it's very balsamic, and you get that amber, and then you also get that beautiful raspberry, which actually, if you think about it, and when you spray it, and when you compare them side by side, they are pretty much the same fragrance. It just feels like they grabbed Tobacco Oud and they put this gourmand layer and they made it more spicy, and they created Tobacco Oud Intense. Now, the raspberry, again, makes this fragrance very interesting. You also get this leather vibe about this fragrance, or a leather accord, especially on the dry down. And of course, you have that typical Tom Ford Oud in here, which stands out and reminds you on Tobacco Oud. Now, there's also an interesting vibe about this fragrance, which I really like. Is that animalic vibe to this fragrance, especially on the dry down. On the opening, it's so balsamic, it's so gorgeous, but as it starts drying down, you get this animalic vibe to this fragrance, which makes it very sophisticated. It gives it that old school type of a vibe to the fragrance, which I truly love when it comes to fragrances, because that's how fragrances used to be made back in the days. So it gives that 80s vibe to the fragrance, which I really like about this fragrance. Now, that's as far as the accords goes with Tobacco Oud Intense. Now, Tobacco Oud Intense was probably one of my favorite releases of 2017 next to Oud Intense. I think those were two solid releases in 2017 by Tom Ford. I mean, when he came out with those two fragrances, I was just like, I need to get both of them. These are just phenomenal. From the first spray, at the store when they sprayed it, when the salesperson sprayed it for me, I'm like, that's it. I want these two. You don't even need to explain to me. I love these. And I just bought them right away. And I fell in love with Tobacco Oud Intense so much. And the same with Oud Intense, which I will do another video of Oud Intense. But this one is a gorgeous fragrance. And again, the nose behind this fragrance is the same guy. It's Olivier Guillotine. I hope I'm saying the name right. But then when he made this fragrance, or when they updated the Tobacco Oud to Tobacco Oud Intense, he got together with Jan Vasnier, and they created this masterpiece. And I think it truly became a masterpiece because, like I said in one of my videos, they made Tobacco Oud more complete. This became just more complete as a fragrance. And that's why I personally prefer Tobacco Oud Intense over Tobacco Oud. Now, as far as the performance and longevity of this fragrance goes, as I mentioned, it definitely does better than Tobacco Oud because, again, it has very strong chords and notes to it. They changed up some of the notes. They definitely made it more intense. And it has some of the notes in there that got added, which I will go over it with Tobacco Oud Intense. So you don't really get top, middle, and base notes in here, which was not provided, but the notes that you get with this fragrance, you get coriander, which on Tobacco Oud, you don't have that. You have a big dose of tobacco, the same tobacco as you have in Tobacco Oud. You got the same oud as you have in Tobacco Oud Intense. You got labdanum, you got amber, which that amber chord definitely stands out when you initially spray this fragrance. You got sandalwood, which you have in Tobacco Oud. You got cedar. You got tonka bean, which actually makes this fragrance kind of sweet and bitter at the same time, which gives it the same type of vibe as Tobacco Oud. And then you got something really interesting in here, which is castoreum. Now, the castoreum, again, made this fragrance very interesting, especially on the dry down. As I mentioned, it made it animalic, and it also gave it that extra boost and that extra oomph and that extra sexuality to the fragrance that you want. It kind of makes this fragrance kind of old school at the same time as well, makes it very classic. So that's why I prefer this over the Tobacco Oud. And you also have patchouli in here, which I definitely smell it in here, which rounds up the fragrance, gives it a nice volume, and it makes the fragrance earthy and beautiful. So this is as far as the Tobacco Oud Intense notes goes. Oh, and then one note that I forgot that it's not mentioned anywhere, you also have raspberry in here, which you get this right on the opening, which makes this fragrance very beautiful. I mentioned that in the accords, when you spray this, you cannot deny the raspberry note or the raspberry accord in here, which is really beautiful. It totally makes the fragrance stand out. It gives that luxury type of a vibe and kind of also gourmandish type of vibe to the fragrance at the same time, which again makes me want to pick this fragrance every time over Tobacco Oud. So if I'm going to be running out of Tobacco Oud, I'm going to be getting Tobacco Oud Intense. Because I just think it's just so much better, performs so much better, it smells so much better as well. Now, as far as the compliments goes, again, these two fragrances are very artistic. They are very bold. They're unapologetic. They hit you right in the face, and they have a very daring vibe about them. So again, if you are a mature person and you hang out around mature people, they will definitely appreciate this fragrance. If you have the right outfit, the right personality, because remember, this is such a strong fragrance that if you don't have the right personality for it, it will actually wear you. So you better make sure that you know what you're doing with this fragrance and you know how to dress with this fragrance and where to wear this fragrance. Again, as far as versatility goes, it's not a versatile fragrance. You cannot wear this everywhere. It's not an everyday signature scent. This is definitely a dressed up type of fragrance for definitely for nighttime, and it's definitely for winter time. Even I would say it's too much, especially the Tobacco Oud Intense would be too much even for fall, unless you're living in a place that the fall is also extremely cold. So yes, it's a very strong fragrance. It carries itself, and you definitely have to be careful when you wear this fragrance. But as far as the compliments goes, it's 50-50. I get a lot of good compliments where they're like, oh my God, you smell so good. What are you wearing? And I also get compliments where they're like, what the hell is this? What are you wearing? It smells like a cheap cologne, or it just doesn't smell right. And I think it's the Castellarium probably on the dry down that they're smelling. So it's pretty interesting as far as what you get as far as feedback and compliments when it comes to this fragrance. So if you wear this, you also are in it for a ride as far as the compliments goes, or as far as just the remarks that you get. So this is definitely not a fragrance that I would wear this at work. Stay away from this fragrance if you go to work, please. Unless you're a boss and you got your own office and you're not in a cubic area where a lot of people have to smell you all day long, then I would definitely wear this. But unless you don't have that luxury, stay away from this fragrance and only wear it at nighttime. So with that being said, these fragrances, they both are very unique. I would say Tobacco Oud Intense is even more unique than Tobacco Oud. So it should be pretty clear by now what's my take on these two fragrances. I would definitely go with Tobacco Oud Intense. And that's all I have for Tobacco Oud Intense and Tobacco Oud. And with that being said, we get to the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you guys soon with another video. Peace and ciao.